Welcome everyone, welcome. I see folks streaming in now. I'll give it just a few more minutes, or a few more seconds to let everyone get in, but I think we'll get started. So great to see everyone again. I'm your host, Daniel Bryant. Welcome to the stream. I think it's episode 2 of our second season of Syntasso webinars. And I'm super excited today to have guest presenting, none other than COO and co-founder, Paula Kennedy, doing an amazing talk about being a multiplayer mode. What we're going to do is we'll do, I think, 20 or 25-minute presentation by Paula, and then Paula and I will do some Q&A. I'll look through the comments, so feel free. We actually very much welcome comments in LinkedIn, wherever you're watching this stream. Join our Slack. You can DM me on our Kratix open source Slack, however you like, pigeon, email, whatever works for you. Send us the questions. I'm more than happy to take them. We love audience participation, and then I'll curate the questions and then Paula can answer them. But I think without further ado, Paula, shall I hand over to you? I know you're going to introduce yourself as part of your presentation, but take it away, Paula.
I was just thinking how fun it would be to see a pigeon fly in and drop a note on your desk, Daniel.
That'd be amazing.
Absolutely love that. Okie dokie, thank you. Let me share my screen. So hopefully you can see some slides, which should be cool. Okie dokie. So let me get started. As Daniel briefly mentioned, I will be talking about switching your internal platform to multiplayer mode. The idea for this talk has really come from lots of conversations with other organizations who are trying to get the most from their internal platform. Right? They're trying to increase their return on investment and make sure that their internal platform is effective without having to massively expand the size of their platform team. So I'm going to be sharing how at Syntasso, we try to help organizations to solve this specific challenge. And I'm going to include a use case of where we've actually succeeded in this. A brief introduction. I'm Paula Kennedy. As Daniel mentioned, I'm the COO and co-founder of Syntasso. We are the makers of Kratix, which is an open source project, and we have the product Syntasso Kratix Enterprise, which is our supported version of Kratix. Kratix itself is a framework for building internal developer platforms. Personally, I'm also very active in the platform engineering scene and also in the London tech community. I do a bunch of stuff, but I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about multiplayer mode. So let's get on with it. I'm going to start with a brief history lesson. To understand the pains that organizations are feeling today with internal platforms, we need to go back and look at challenges that we've had or evolution that we've had in the past. So once upon a time, there were developers. We'll call those Alexes. And we had operators. So let's call those Steves. And they were typically separated by what you could call the wall of confusion, right? So they were very siloed. You had developers trying to write code and develop new features, and then they were dependent on ops to provide infrastructure or tooling or capabilities. And you also had developers throwing that code that they had written over to the ops teams to run, and ops teams were forced to support that code and often be on call for it, even though they hadn't written it and may not even understand all of it. So 2 teams, very siloed, lots of friction, lots of blame and finger pointing, and not great. To solve that particular challenge, that friction challenge, we've seen the rise of DevOps. So DevOps itself rose as a grassroots movement from around about 2009 to 2010. The idea being to reduce these silos by effectively putting these 2 teams together. The teams became DevOps teams. And the idea was they would be then empowered to build and run everything for themselves. And that was great, right? That worked really well. So we had these teams working collaboratively together, one team. But as companies started to scale and we had multiple DevOps teams within an organization, we started to see a lot of duplication and waste as DevOps teams were having to solve the same problems and manage the same tooling and services over again. Right? Each team was doing the same things on repeat. And sometimes they were solving challenges or problems with a slightly different tool set or slightly different version, which led to a lot of tech sprawl and a lot of multiple solutions for the same problem. In addition to those challenges, we saw that the amount of work those DevOps teams had to do also kept increasing. DevOps teams were having to figure out how to use more tools and more services and having to think of concerns from infrastructure and networking to CI/CD, observability, and everything else in between. Our tool set has become even more complex. You can just look at something like the CNCF landscape to get a snapshot of how many choices and tools and technologies teams are faced with. And the sheer complexity of building and running everything has led to massive cognitive load on these teams. Basically, the amount of stuff that they have to think about and remember has just become overwhelming. And aside from that complexity of managing more tools and more technologies, DevOps teams are also faced with navigating internal processes and concerns, such as security and also compliance. Now, apologies to anyone in security and compliance teams where I've used ghasts and creepers to illustrate. This is really just to demonstrate that these types of concerns are scary for those of us that don't fully understand them, right? We know that security and compliance are critically important, but it can feel very scary for teams that don't fully understand some of the consequences. So all of these things have led to massive cognitive load on developers, not just tools, not just technologies, but the concerns in the business have meant DevOps teams are faced with a huge cognitive overload. To solve those types of challenges, right, to try to help that situation, we've seen the emergence of platform engineering. One of the key goals of platform engineering is to provide a better developer experience for our developers and to reduce cognitive load for those teams. We want developers to be focused on their core goal of delivering value and not worrying about some of these other concerns. Typically, way platform teams try to do this is by building a platform, right? That's what we mostly see. And that platform itself should ideally be customized for the organization, offering developers the tools and services that they need so that they can get on with their jobs. The idea is that developers can then self-serve these capabilities, and the platform itself is a force multiplier. It's not a bottleneck. Developers can still build and run their applications, but they are not worrying about all the low-level concerns. Some of these are taken care of by the platform team. But a common pattern that we're seeing is that this shift of asking platform teams to take on more and more responsibilities has actually led to increased developer load, increased cognitive load on those platform teams. That cognitive load I described hasn't gone away. It's just that we've shifted it from application teams onto platform teams. And for platform teams, it's not just that they're being asked to provide this wide range of tools and capabilities to their application developers. We are also asking platform teams to provide a lovely developer experience, right? We hear a lot of talk about how important developer experience is, how important it is that developers can stay in the IDE, that they can stay being productive and in the flow, but that's putting even more pressure onto internal platform providers, those platform engineers. So that all takes me back to the original question. How can an organization get maximum value from their platform, but without having to scale that platform team to be huge, to be hundreds of people? So one way I like to think about answering this question is to think about who should do what. My favorite answer is going back to the book Team Topologies, which was first published in 2019 by Matthew Skelton and Manuel Pace. Probably quite a few folks here have read the book, but if you haven't, I would strongly recommend it, not just because I'm a Team Topologies advocate, but I'd recommend reading the book, or you can look for some talks on YouTube. There's lots of great content out there. I won't go into too much detail, but a quick summary. In Team Topologies, they talk about 4 team types: stream-aligned teams, what you might call platform application teams or kind of product teams, enabling teams, complicated subsystem teams or kind of specialist teams, and platform teams. Now, I've already described the problem where developers, sort of those stream-aligned teams, who should be focusing on delivering code and value to end users, are getting put into DevOps teams and asked to build and run everything. That's one problem. We've also seen the challenge for platform teams, where if we shift a load of expectations onto the platform team, those teams themselves have too much and they are struggling to meet those expectations. So how can we look to share the load and involve other teams? Can we make it possible that the work of building the internal platform becomes more evenly distributed so that the cognitive load is evenly distributed across an organization. And this is where the value of a multiplayer approach and a multiplayer platform comes in. Now, at Syntasso, we've been using the term multiplayer for a little while. We also sometimes call it platform democratization or co-creation. Essentially, this is what we mean when we say multiplayer mode. You might also hear it described as this producer and consumer model. And here's my hot take. Producer and consumer model is how you craft platform engineering at scale. So if you imagine that platform engineering is how we've done DevOps at scale and how we've been able to support those developers by saying, okay, some things are taken care of by the platform team. By switching to a multiplayer mode for platform engineering, this is how you can scale your platform engineering efforts across the organization so that you're not overloading your platform teams with that weight of requirements. To illustrate this, I'm going to walk you through 2 examples where other specialist teams can provide inputs into the platform that can benefit your whole organization without loading the platform team up too much. Firstly, let's consider the need for multiple application teams or product teams to have access to a database. So I've taken Postgres as an example. In an ideal world, teams would have access to Postgres on demand as a service, so they can provision an instance when they need one. But likely within your organization, you've got a specialist database team who knows exactly how Postgres works. They know how it should be configured to meet your organization requirements, and they have strong opinions about how the application teams should consume Postgres. Instead of trying to pass all of that specialist knowledge onto the platform team or onto a DevOps team, how about if we make it possible for that specialist team to provide the Postgres database as a component into the platform, making it available for teams to consume? If this expert team can provide the capability, package it up as a platform component or a platform building block, it can be incorporated into the platform and then consumed by other teams. But it means that the platform team do not themselves need to become Postgres experts, and the DevOps teams don't need to be Postgres experts. And the tool can be configured exactly as your organization wants it and consumed. So in Syntasso, we offer this abstraction, this building block, as a promise. That is how we describe building blocks of Cratix. And this component model, this building block model, can be the case for lots of other specific tooling. You could have a team that are specialists in observability or networking or storage. The same principle applies. Those teams should be able to take their specialist knowledge, their tooling, their service, package it as a platform component so that it can be provided to the platform and consumed by the platform users. Platform teams don't need to learn everything. Platform team doesn't need to expand, but the platform itself is growing and offering more capabilities. Let's take a second example. So instead of a specialist tool or technology, how about a specific requirement such as security? So I've depicted that with a lovely piece of golden armor from Minecraft. Likely, again, you are going to have specific security requirements for your organization, and you are going to have specialist security experts within the group. But you aren't going to have enough security specialists to be able to embed one per DevOps team, most likely. So how about if we could make it possible for security to, again, package up their security requirements and make it possible to embed those into the platform itself? If the security team could define the specific stages or processes that need to be followed, and if they can define it through code, this could then be packaged up and put into the platform. Now, it could look like a tool. It could look like a scanning tool or a policies tool. It could look like manual authorization, right? Maybe there's some checkpoints that need to happen, and you want some points in your process where security can do approvals. But if we can write this as code, then we can package it and contribute it into the platform so that the platform team don't need to become security experts. Through this producer-consumer approach, this multiplayer approach, you then have multiple people contributing to the platform, and the platform itself starts to mature. So you see security contributes to the security aspects, and it's becoming a more mature platform. And when you have people like the database team contributing a database as a service, the platform is growing in capabilities. And this growth in maturity and services offered is not coming at the expense of the platform team or more DevOps teams. It's coming by everybody being able to contribute. And the platform itself is starting to look more like a marketplace where producers and consumers can meet. Now, you might be thinking at this point that this sounds like a lovely story, maybe even a Minecraft movie, but I'm going to actually call out a recent case study that we published on our website, which illustrates exactly how somebody has done this. So NatWest Bank have published a case study on our website, which is how they have actually done this using Kratix. For some context, NatWest is a top 5 UK bank. They have more than 60,000 employees globally, and they serve over 19 million customers, and they're growing. 1 in 4 UK payments is processed by NatWest. So they are a big and well-established bank. They've been on their platform journey for a number of months, but one of their core goals has been to distribute cognitive load more evenly across teams. In the case study that was published on our website, they talked about one of the outcomes they had been working on was co-creation of capabilities, which is another way of saying producer-consumer model or multiplayer mode. They have been able to build their internal platform following this model and involving multiple different teams across the bank who have contributed their specialist tooling via Kratix promises into the platform. And as well as being able to make this model a reality within the bank, they've also seen and delivered on other outcomes. They've been able to reduce time to provision development environments and provide a simplified developer experience for the teams that are using that platform. Which leads me nicely to the next part of my talk, which is how to get started with this multiplayer approach. Now, platform engineering as a practice is still evolving, but there's lots of folks in our industry who agree that platform engineering is a socio-technical practice, which basically means it's not just about the tooling and the technology, it's also about people. And we have to get people aligned to work in this way. It's again useful to go back and look at team topologies because they describe interaction modes of how we can work across different teams. They call out 3 specific interaction modes: collaboration, X as a service, and facilitating. So how does this work? Well, to begin to understand what the building blocks of the platform should be, the best starting point for the platform team is to talk to the platform consumers, who are basically the application developers. And for those early discussions to drive the best outcome and get the best empathy between the teams, this is really where we talk about collaboration as the starting mode, right? In team topologies, it's depicted with this diamond pattern. To put this more simply, platform teams should go and talk to the application teams to understand exactly what they need. This interaction mode is not forever, right? The idea is not that you have to stay in high collaboration mode for a long period of time. You start with this to get the best outcome and the most sort of efficient conversations to define exactly what the platform should offer, but that's not what you have to do forever. The other key point of this actually is that when you have these specialist kind of application teams, they are not only consumers of the platform, they could very well be producers. You may have a DevOps team who's running their own tool or software or technology that they want to package up and contribute into the platform. So by starting with this collaboration model, you're building empathy upfront between the teams. And this collaboration interaction mode is where platform teams should start with all potential providers and consumers. Right? You need to understand requirements. You need to have kind of high fidelity conversations with those people to get the best understanding, the best empathy, and then you are putting the right kind of pieces into your platform. Through this early collaboration, the components then can start to be built and everybody understands what is needed and how to produce these components. The platform starts to build up in capabilities, starts to look more like this marketplace of tools and services. And the end goal that you're driving towards is what Team Topologies describes as X as a service, which is depicted with these 2 semicircles. Effectively, what you want is for the stream aligned teams or those developer teams to be able to self-serve on the platform with as little friction as possible. Self-service mode in team topologies is really as you expect, right? Teams can go and get the things that they need, and on an ongoing basis, there's very light touch collaboration, just making sure that things continue to work. But the capabilities available on the platform need to be available on demand, self-service. The app teams or stream-aligned teams should not need to raise a ticket or send a Slack message. They should get the things they need when they need them, in a similar way to how we see cloud providers, right? Cloud services. You request a thing and you have access to it without having to do any other process. And this brings me to the last part of my talk, and that is the technical requirements. So how can we create this producer consumer model within an organization that most likely has quite a lot of legacy tech or technical debt or duplication, as I mentioned at the start? I'm going to give a bit of a consultant's answer and say it depends. When it comes to technology choices, there are lots of options available on the market. It can be hard to know what to build, what to buy, how to weigh up the different options. One pattern that we've observed is lots of organizations starting with adding a developer portal, maybe another portal, but this could be a portal such as Backstage or Port or Cortex. There's portals available. Now, portals are great, right? They provide a really nice user experience and they can absolutely help with the discoverability of services, making it visible for platform consumers to see exactly what is available for them to consume. But I had a really great quote recently that said, starting with this approach, the approach of starting with a portal, is a bit like building your house and starting with the front door and not the foundations, right? It's kind of the starting point of the platform, but it's not the full platform. So when you're thinking about the foundations of your platform, you're really going to have a look at your current technology stack, your capabilities, where you are on your platform journey. But I want to leave you some key questions to consider when you're weighing up your choices. Firstly, how long does it take for a platform provider to add a new offering into the platform? If you have this type of a approach already and people are packaging up services to share, how long does that take? How easy is it for a new product, a new capability to be provided so that people can consume it? Once the offering is available, how long does it then take an actual platform consumer to get one of these things? Taking the database as an example, how long does it take for the consumer to provision one instance of a database? Is that quick? Is it really self-service, or is there hidden processes that are taking up time? And finally, once you have this model working, how hard then is it to manage all of these instances? Maybe you've got the provisioning started, people are able to go and consume things. What happens day 2? What happens day 200? Is it easy to keep those instances patched, secure, up to date? What is happening for that day 2 experience? And if you're thinking about these kind of questions, you might want to come and have a look at Kratix. Obviously, we have built Kratix to answer these specific questions. If you haven't looked at it yet, then maybe you should. That brings me to the end of my talk. So I've covered quite a lot of ground, but just to recap, key takeaways I hope you got from this are platform engineering at its basic kind of core value is it should reduce cognitive load for developers. Your internal platform should be a force multiplier and not a bottleneck. But it shouldn't be single player. What you need to avoid is putting all that pressure and weight of expectations and requirements onto one single platform team. It should be consumer producer model where multiple people can contribute to the platform, maybe multiple platform teams can contribute together. Multiplayer mode gives you the opportunity to have your platform and scale your platform without having to grow your platform team. And finally, platform engineering is a socio-technical practice. We have to think about how we get people using the platform, how we get them contributing to the platform, consuming the platform. It's about having those interactions with people and choosing the right interaction mode with people to bring them on this journey. I want to do a quick thank you to SlideChef, who gave me this wonderful Minecraft-based slide template. Also, a quick shout out to my 2 children who taught me how to play Minecraft, even though I'm very bad at it, and they tell me that all of the time. If you're interested in learning more, then you can see this lovely AI generated slide of me and my dog in Minecraft style. But you can find me on LinkedIn or Blue Sky. If you want to know more about Syntasso and specifically the capabilities of Kratix and how we make multiplayer mode a reality, you can scan this QR code or you can find us at our website, syntasso.io. And hopefully, I've left enough time for us to have some questions. Thank you very much.
Love it, Paula, and perfect timing as well. Perfect time. We've already got shouts out to the slides. Divine, loving what you see. So loving the illustrations. So kudos for shouting for the kids, Paula, as well. That was nicely done. I love the Minecraft theme. Fantastic. Folks watching, feel free to ping questions across. Just a reminder again, you can find on the LinkedIn event, you can join Kratix OSS Slack, hit us up there. You can DM me on any platform I'm on. I've got all my tabs open here. And as we joked earlier, we do accept carrier pigeon, but I live in Guildford, so it might take a while to get here. So probably best to stick with electronic comms today. But I've already got one question rolling in, Paula, from Shirley. What's the first signal that an organization needs to move from a single player to a multiplayer platform model?
It's a great question. Again, classic consulting answer, it depends. But in this situation, it really depends on size and scale of the organization. It's a similar thing with DevOps teams, right? If you're a very small organization and you only have one or two product teams, then maybe you don't, in that instance, even need a platform team, right? Because a small number of people can manage a small number of concerns themselves. But as an organization scales, you will tend to find that the amount of complexity is growing. The signals are probably when it's taking longer and longer for things to happen. The questions I raised at the end of the deck about how long does it take for a new service to be available? How long does it take to provision an instance of that new capability? And how long is it taking to kind of patch and upgrade? If the answer to any and all of those questions is an increasing amount of time, that's a signal that you now should consider how to kind of scale that platform, and multiplayer mode is one way. Obviously, another way is hire 100 more people and grow that platform team in size. But for most organizations, particularly in the current economic climate, that's not the answer. We're trying to do more with less, and multiplayer mode is a way to do that, actually. So I think it's considering the timing, considering the scale of your organization, and thinking about if things are slowing down and the platform is having the opposite effect, if it's becoming a bottleneck instead of a force multiplier, that's the time to look at, is the weight of requirements on the platform team too great? Is cognitive overload on the platform team too great?
Yeah, love it, Paul. I love it. As you were talking there, I was thinking you've written a great article on devops.com, so people can have a look for the multiplayer mode article, which touches on some of those things there. And also, our colleague Kat has written an awesome article for the New Slack, I want to say. She talked about the producer and consumer model, right, which kind of hints at some of these things. And I've actually, one thing just to add on what you said there, Paula, I met chatting to Rachel Wanacott, our friend from the community, doing awesome work, doing amazing presentations. And she was saying to me that, that Dunbar's number is interesting here. And Dunbar's number, folks haven't bumped into it. It's kind of like, I think it's 150, and it's the number of relationships, humans can kind of maintain, which anecdotally as a consultant, ex-consultant myself, Paula, I can relate to as well. And like Rachel and a few folks I was chatting to at KubeCon were saying that once your org gets past 150, then, just complexity pops up, right? And then you do need to think about having processes, frameworks, tools like Kratix to actually make it possible to scale that collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome stuff. I've got another question here, Paula, from Steve. How can platform teams strike the right balance between enabling contributions from other teams and maintaining consistency or security across the platform?
Oh, that's a really great question, and I think it's again it's going to come down to how the contribution model works. So obviously, for the way we think about it in Syntasso is having a standardized kind of abstraction, which is what we call the promise, right? That standard contract is how teams can package up their specific tooling, let's say, in a way that is consistent. And we think about it a little bit like Lego bricks, to switch games slightly for a second from Minecraft. But we think of the Lego bricks analogy of things could be different sizes, shapes, colors, but they're all pluggable because they follow a set of guardrails and particularly API construct that means things can look slightly different, but all play together nicely. So I think when it comes to how do we ensure that consistency, API driven, like API first approach, absolutely key. I mentioned as well that, or maybe I didn't mention, but one thing that's important is to have those APIs being well documented, right? Making it very clear for folks who are providers into the platform what is required, how to put your package together, exactly what the kind of the right endpoints are, etc. So having something that's well documented and easy for teams to follow. Like I say, through Kratix, we use the promise model, and that makes it easier for teams to follow a set of guidance that makes the promises pluggable into Kratix. But I mean, obviously there are other tools available. It's just that you need to think about how to make sure that providers follow the same types of patterns and make it consistent. And things like security is kind of similar, right? What we consider in Kratix is having security baked into the platform. So having the security aspects being available as a component that can be wrapped up into other promises, right? We can add like a security scanning as part of a workflow into every promise component that is put into the platform, which makes it consistent across the board. And therefore, each team who is even a producer doesn't have to think about security. They just wrap in the security component into their promise, if that makes sense. It's one of
Yeah.
those things where I'd like to just get out a whiteboard and show you how Kratix works, but
Indeed.
I won't do that for now.
As any good founder should. Well, I constantly like you baking all that knowledge into Kratix, right? Yeah, 100%. I like your shout out
Absolutely.
to the Lego because the Lego folks gave us a shout out actually at KubeCon, right, and Platinum Day where you were hosting, and Mads from Lego, from the actual Lego company, was talking a lot about golden bricks, which I think is what you're hinting at,
Yeah.
Paula, as well.
Yeah.
So folks can check out the talks. They're on YouTube from the CNCF. Very kindly uploaded all of the talks. So if you want to look for Mads and the Lego crew, they talk about these concepts that Paula was talking about as well. And I also want to shout out another one of our colleagues, Abby Bangser, the awesome Abby. We just say Abby, one name out, like Beyonce. Everyone knows Abby, right? Abby did a great post. It's only just been published on platformengineering.com. It's a new website from the TechStrong folks. And Abby wrote about the inner sourcing approach, which kind of you touched on there, Paula. So I always like to shout out references for folks. So check out Abby's awesome article around how you sort of scale out the contributions to the platform. So that's great stuff, Paula. I've got a question, Divine. Great question. You talked about collaboration between the platform teams and other teams, for example, the database team. Those collaborations not being forever, team methodologies model. Could you elaborate on that? Is the collaboration only in the setup of the components, or both during or both, particularly around the day two operations?
I love that. That's an excellent question. Thanks, Divine. Yeah. So interestingly, in team topologies, like I say, they have these 3 interaction modes, and the idea is you choose the right mode for the right sort of stage in the life cycle. So the idea is you start with collaboration because that's the high touch. It's the highest cost in terms of obviously human interaction. You are talking to people, which can be challenging for some folks, but you're talking to people and you're defining upfront the requirements, understanding the needs, that type of action. And then you are building. And as we always like to focus on, you're not just going off and building in isolation for 6 months and then presenting something and saying, ta-da! The idea is
Yes.
that you are getting fast feedback. So when you as the platform team are producing something, or you have other producers producing something, you want to have a method of feedback. One thing that Team Topologies talks about, which I didn't go into too much on this, was enabling teams, right? That's the 4th team type that doesn't get mentioned very much, but enabling teams tend to be short-lived teams that are created with a specific goal. And it could be that they're enabling producers to be able to understand how to produce things, right? So that could be a good example of you have an enabling team stood up and they're going around educating different teams on here's how you're going to produce a component, do this thing. And it's high touch, it's high collaboration. But the aim is not to have that forever because of the amount of time and energy it takes, actually. So what you're aiming for is to have as a service mode. That's the one with the little two circles in the team topologies book. But as a service literally just means teams can self-serve, no friction. Then they're able to get on with kind of the things they need when they need them. But one thing team topologies does call out is this what they call light touch collaboration, which is ongoing, because one constant that we know of is change, right? Things always change. There are new technologies, there are new CVEs, there are new requirements, new regulation. I mean, the only constant is change, let's be honest. So you can't assume, this is true for all things, but specifically platform engineering, you can't assume that once you've built it, it's done. The platform and the platform components are constantly evolving, constantly needing to be nurtured. Some should be deprecated, new things should be added. It's ongoing. Gregor Hoppe likes to talk about the floating platform versus the sinking platform. Right? Your platform should be floating, and it should be able to incorporate new technologies as they come in without sinking and being brittle and decaying. So how do you know about those changes? Well, you know about that through ongoing light touch collaboration. So I've seen organizations do this with, communities of practice. They do it through lunch and learns. Like, it's not ongoing, we're going to have a full week meeting to talk about requirements, but on an ongoing basis, maybe a weekly, monthly, whatever your right cadence is, it's light touch collaboration, checking in. Maybe it's user surveys of the platform. Maybe it's, rotations, having people coming into the platform team or going out to developers to have a look at what they're doing. It's light touch, but it's ongoing. So yeah, it's absolutely not the case that you speak to somebody once and you never speak to them again. That is not the way it goes, sadly.
Love it, Paula. Yeah, plus one to that as a consultant. Like people, I saw in many projects people just trying to avoid talking to each other, and it's like, no, you have. It's a team game, software delivery, right? A team sport. You have to talk.
It is.
So fantastic. Well, yeah, I want to shout out you. Gave Gregor Holber a shout out. Platform Strategy is the book. Amazing book. I actually shouted it out in a talk I did this week. The floating platform stuff is well worth checking out. Thank you for the question, Divine. I'll also shout out Divine's amazing work on everything DevOps. He's writing some great articles for us as well. So if you want to know more about Kubernetes and how that's working with Kratix, how they're scaling out platforms, check out Divine's team with everything DevOps. Also got a couple of nice shout outs. So great talk from Gustavo, Paula. So kudos. And we've got someone asking about can you share real world examples where multiplayer led to measurable platform adoption? And you called out NatWest as a great case study there, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So NatWest have the case study I mentioned is on our website. People can go to the case studies page on syntasa.io and read it, read their own words, right? This is the case study that they published. It's funny how I've actually been talking to other organizations who, for whom this is like their number one thing they're focused on right now. So, I mean, we feel the pain. This is one of those things that I think up till maybe recently we haven't had the vocabulary to describe it, but we feel it, especially for those platform teams. I gave a talk a while back which was whose cognitive load is it anyway, and where we've seen this shift of the cognitive load going from the application developers onto the platform teams. That's just getting worse. So this problem is being felt, this pain is being felt. And we've seen the outcomes already from NatWest that are public. We are having internally or with customers that we aren't public about yet. We're having these similar conversations and talking about how we can measure the pain so that we can measure the improvement, actually.
Yeah,
So
love it, Paula.
hopefully more case studies to come as we get more publicly available references.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Got two more questions we might be able to sneak in, Paula. First, Aaron's asking, how can smaller companies without many specialist teams still benefit from the multiplayer model?
Yes, so I can give a Kratix shout out, which is we have our marketplace of promises. So that's one way. If you are looking to build in these capabilities and you don't have the specialists, there are promises that we have written in our team that are kind of available open source, so you can pull those in. We are actually looking to grow our community and have our customers contribute their specialisms into the marketplace, so it becomes more of a network effect and there will be more capabilities available. I think for smaller teams who are looking to how they can actually do this themselves, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think people are gonna build the platform that they need, right? So it's going to be a challenge for any team trying to upskill. Daniel, you gave a shout out to the Divines team and the things that they're doing around content and education. Any new capability that you need to offer, teams have to weigh up what's the current skill set, how do they upskill if they need to. So AI is a classic one, right? An absolute classic. So we are currently investigating it ourselves as Satasso, like what AI capabilities should we be adding to the platform that our community can make benefit of. Is going to be the same for organizations all trying to upskill. And so I think you just need to be careful to select the things that are right for you. And also, I talk about this sometimes where I say a maturing platform does not necessarily mean more and more capabilities, right? It could be an
Interesting. Yeah,
improvement
yeah,
to your platform
yeah.
by de-scoping and
That's a good point.
taking out some
Yeah.
stuff to simplify the platform. The best platform is not the one that offers the most stuff. The best
That's a
platform is the
really good
one that
point.
offers the best experience, right? So
Mm,
don't think that, oh my God, our platform only offers 2 things and it should offer 200 things. That is not necessarily the case. If there are the right 2 things that you're offering, that's good. That's enough.
mm. That's a really good point, Paula. I remember reading like Thinking Fast and Slow and all those kind of classic books that talk about human psychology. It's really hard for humans to take stuff away. We just want to add, to
Yeah,
make things better. We just add more, right? And I've done it in software engineering. I'm sure you've done it. We've all done it, right? But that is a really good point for platforms. Simplicity is a winner, right?
absolutely.
Sometimes.
I mean,
So then,
another team topologies concept is this minimum viable platform, which
mm,
gets a bit mixed up with minimum viable, thinnest viable are the 2
yeah,
things, right?
yeah,
They get a bit mixed up. Minimum is where you start, and it's easy to say, oh, greenfield, we'll start with something very lightweight and it will be lovely. And it's then tempting to keep adding more, as you just mentioned. And actually, what Team Topologies advocates for is thinnest viable. It's
yeah, yeah.
just enough platform. It's not keep on adding more and more stuff. It's just enough platform to make it useful. That is the
Yes, yes.
dream. So to get it to be thinner by taking stuff away, that is actually a good goal to aim for.
Yeah, I love it, Paula. And we've got to shout out Abby again. Abby did an article for the New Stack. And I see, NT,
Yeah,
thank you for putting it on the screen. I think Abby wrote this a couple of years ago now, but I find
yeah,
myself constantly sharing it, folks. So, folks, if you're looking for the
me too.
thinnest viable platform, minimal viable platform, the differences, Abby's got a great article on the New Stack, which you can find the
It's
link
very
there.
funny because
So,
that came from a big rant of Abby's, right? She had a real BNF on it about it, and I love it.
it's a
So
great
yeah, it's a
article,
great
right?
article. Yeah.
Awesome stuff, Paula. And I would just shout out Shane on our team is going to be writing an MCP based article. So, folks in the AI space, you just shouted out, Paula. Shane's talking around some Kratix and MCP. So, stay tuned. If you want to know more about that, hit me up on DMs. I can give you a sneak preview on that, perhaps. But final question, Paula. We've got like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not Aaron. That's who's this? Charlie.
Talk fast, right?
Charlie's. Yeah. Charlie saying for teams just starting out, what's a small step they can take to start going multiplayer?
I think that the best thing is to look at where a current bottleneck is, or where's a
Mm,
current pain, right? So if you've got a bunch of teams, you could look at. I mean, one simple piece of advice I quite often give is like looking at Jira or whatever ticket-based system you've got, looking at the things that people are asking for
mm,
most and
mm,
considering, is that a capability that the platform team should offer? Or is it something you could go to another team and say, here's the thing, you run it in the platform and I'll provide it to you. And so you can start small. This is the
mm,
one of the great things about platform engineering and multiplayer mode is that you don't have to do everything up front. You can start with one thing. So if the platform team has been asked in their backlog for providing a particular capability, it's never made it to the top of the backlog, people keep asking for it, and you're maybe not focusing on it because your team doesn't have the expertise, right? Your platform team doesn't have that capability. If you know somebody else does, maybe start there. Maybe go talk to that team and say, hey, how about if you could offer this capability into our platform? Obviously, you've got to have that scaffolding of how to do that. So something like Aquatic, some kind of an orchestration way to be able to make that possible. But that's where I would start, is kind of have a look at current backlog, current tickets, current pains.
mm,
Pick one thing that you think, if only we could offer this thing, and we know the team that can do it, and we think they'd be up for a bit of an experiment,
mm.
start there.
Yeah, I love it, Paul. I love the start small call out because yeah, I've fallen victim in the past of wanting to doing everything, doing the big bang, and that often only leads to a big bang, right? So start small and then and then develop further. Fantastic, Paula. We're bang on time. Really appreciate a fantastic presentation, Paula. Thank you so much, and appreciate all the Q&A there. Thanks to the audience as well. Great questions coming in. That was more than we thought. That was fantastic. So you can find Paula and I on LinkedIn. You can go to Syntasa.io, check out all the references we've mentioned. You can get in contact with us via Syntasa.io. You can find us on the Cratix OSS Slack. We are very approachable on the interwebs in general. We love your feedback. If you want to get started with Cratix, want to get started with Syntasa Cratix Enterprise, reach out to us. I'm more than happy to help you with a guided POV, some documentation, whatever works best for you. But I'll say to everyone, enjoy the afternoon, enjoy the weekend. Thanks again, Paula. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Daniel.